Looking back, I think that both the hope and the faith of our diocese were just a bit ahead of their time. Ironically, the reason I left seminary halfway through was that when it came time for us to go into parishes and student preach, the parishes would not accept the women as preachers. They were happy to take us on as teachers in Sunday school. They were thrilled for us to lead youth groups and choirs, but preaching off limits to me and to my sister students. There were meetings, negotiations with the bishops and the priests, and in the end, half of us left the seminary frustrated at being unseen and unrecognized for our gifts. And yet, here I am again, and I feel as though someone has pulled back the veil I've been hiding behind for 2 decades. I'm showing a part of myself to you that hasn't been seen for nearly my entire adult life. It feels vulnerable. It feels true. It feels joyous. It feels scary. If you think about it, much of Jesus' adult life was also lived behind history's veil. I wonder what that was like for him, knowing who he really was as he fixed a broken door frame or built a table that was level and pleasing to the eye. We don't know anything about that part of his life. The only part we do know about, besides a few brief glimpses into his birth and childhood, is 3 short years, 3 years before the cross. The 3 years he spent teaching and trying to show us who he was and what the kingdom of God could look like if only we could open our eyes. Ever since the cross and resurrection, we've struggled to understand who Jesus is. For someone so pivotal in history, history has not left us much to work with. Still, we work with what we have. In the past 2,000 years, we've taken the 100 or so pages of the Gospels and created millions of images of Jesus. Essays, poems, treatises, paintings, sculptures, tapestries, black velvet paintings, and bubble-headed Jesus dolls. We've used every medium we can think of to try and answer 2 simple questions. Who is Jesus? And what does Jesus, whoever he is, mean for my life and the lives of those around me? Fortunately, the 100 pages we do have are filled with stories that show us Jesus' character, that show us what sort of choices he made in a changing and confusing world, and that tell us what he said during the 3 years he walked with dusty feet upon this planet. However, no matter how much someone reveals of themselves, it can still be a struggle to see them as they truly are, especially if we have a lot of preconceptions about who they are and who they ought to be. In last week's gospel, a crowd tried to run Jesus off a cliff because he'd announced that he was the chosen one foretold by the prophet Isaiah. It wasn't that they didn't want a Messiah. It's that they didn't want this kind of Messiah. They thought he was wrong for the job because he didn't fit their preconceptions about what a Messiah ought to look or act like. I can only imagine how frustrated Jesus must have been as he slipped away from that crowd. He's worked miracles. He's healed the deaf and blind, cast out demons, turned water into wine. What more could he do? Why can't he get people to see him for who he is? At this point, he's also feeling the pressure of time. He knows the cross is just around the corner. And so we come to the story of the Transfiguration. Many Christians, myself amongst them, find the Transfiguration to be one of the most confusing stories in the New Testament. Whether it's the word itself, Transfiguration that is confusing, or the presence of so many holy special effects that challenge our modern faith, Transfiguration is not something that we of 2013 can easily explain or incorporate into our own faith stories. So let's start with the easy part, the word itself. Two of the meanings of Transfiguration are transformation, metamorphosis. Transfiguration thus refers to a change in form, not a change in substance, not a change in the essence of who or what one is, but a change in what is presented to others for public view. Thus, this transfiguration of Jesus is not a story about Jesus changing from a human being into a divine being. It is a story about the revelation, the unveiling of who Jesus was all along. A person at one with the holy, composed of grace, every cell a vessel of the presence of God. He's been the living sacred ever since Elizabeth greeted Mary with joy and felt her own baby leap in her womb in response to the presence of the holy in Mary's womb. He was the Son of the Ancient of Days when he was teaching in the temple at age 12. He's God. That shining visage, those glowing clothes, are the author's way of trying to describe the indescribable. What do you see when you look into the face of God? Whatever Moses saw transformed his face so completely that he had to wear a veil when he was going about his daily life, lest people be scared or unnerved by his appearance. The Transfiguration is thus a story of revelation, of unveiling, but what an unusual story it is. When Jesus and his three apostles arrive at the mountaintop and begin to pray, who should appear but Moses and Elijah? These two pillars of the Jewish faith strike up a conversation with Jesus, talking with him about his departure, about the cross that looms on the road ahead. I've always wondered, were they comforting Jesus, encouraging him, giving him strength for the challenges ahead? Were they handing over the reins to him, Moses the law and Elijah the prophets, letting Jesus know that their time was past and his time is now forever? I wonder. As they talk, Jesus' face begins to glow, and his clothing changes from roughly woven common cloth to shining white fabric, a humble attempt to describe the glory being unveiled for all to see. However, there's one little problem. There's no one to see this heaven-shaking revelation because Peter, James, and John are all taking a little snooze. Here we are at the turning of history. Jesus is revealed in all God's glory. Elijah and Moses show up for the first time in thousands of years, and Peter, James, and John are snoring away off in the corner. Unbelievable. They say they know who Jesus is, and yet when he takes them up on a mountaintop to pray, they fall asleep. Echoes of a future nap taken in a garden on the darkest night of Jesus' life. I want to shake them awake. I want to demand that they ask Jesus all the questions that will haunt us 2,000 years later. I want them to pay attention and witness to the glory of God because I want to know what it is like to be that close to the embodied Ancient of Days. When they do wake up to a Jesus unveiled, they are so overwhelmed, so confused, and so hungry for more that Peter tries to prolong the event, suggesting, ooh, this is for Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. You can almost picture him getting on the cell phone, calling up the caterer. But then a cloud descends upon them. This isn't a weather cloud. This is the cloud of Shekinah, the cloud representing the indwelling presence of God. God speaks out from the cloud. This is my Son, my chosen one. Listen to him. There it is, right there. God's clearly telling us who Jesus is, very plainly, no big fancy words. Jesus is my Son, my child, my flesh. Jesus is the one I've chosen to speak my word to the world. And what ought you to do about revelation ought to have changed everything. By the time Jesus and his friends get down the mountain, it seems as though the light of the holy ought to be reflected in every face in the crowd. It seems as though each person should have the faith to move that mountain they just came down from. But when Jesus gets to the bottom of the mountain, he finds that not only have Peter, James, and John not spoken a single word about what they've seen and heard, but also that the disciples are unable to perform a healing he has already given them the power to do. The cross is drawing nearer. Still, his own disciples do not see him, do not know him, do not really listen to him. You can hear the rage and the frustration in his voice as he wonders how much longer he will be able to put up with this not seeing, his blindness of faith and heart. Okay, I have some questions. I know that I too am a child of God. I know that I am called to follow Jesus and to be part of the body of Christ in this world. But I can't always see myself as God sees me. I cannot always sense the presence of God within me, nor am I always able to share the spark of faith that I carry in my heart. Nor can I always see others as God sees them. I suspect I'm not the only one. Why do we hide from the grace planted within us? Do we feel unworthy? Are we confused by it? Do we mistrust it? What courage would it take for us to look into our hearts and see what God sees in us? To see ourselves as we truly are, not as who we think we are, not as who we think others think we are, not as who we are afraid we are, not as who we hope we are, but as we truly are. How would that revelation transfigure our perceptions about everything? We already are the creatures God has made us. We already contain that gift of grace, whether we see it or not, whether we admit it or not. So what would happen if we pulled back the veil just the tiniest bit and revealed that sacred seed within to ourselves? What would happen if we pulled back the veil and revealed that sacred seed to others? Who are we really? And what would happen if we showed our true selves, that true grace-filled, grace-full self to the world, to others, to ourselves? Just the idea of showing my true self to the world is a little bit terrifying. Just the idea of looking behind the veil to try and see the truth of the hearts of others, however, begins to transfigure me and my frightened heart just a little. Imagine how practicing a little daily listening, a little daily unveiling, might further transfigure my life. I imagine it might just give me the courage to stand up and preach again after 20 years. How about you? What if you were to listen with me to what Jesus says about himself? What if you and I were to dare to peek beyond the veil so that together we might begin to understand the grace and possibilities of transfiguration? We've waited 2,000 years already to see Jesus. And apparently he's been here all along, behind the veils and in the hearts of those around us. Look at the face in the pew next to you. Study the face that shows in the mirror. Listen with your holy heart, because I think 2,000 years is a long time to walk the world unseen.